Usually when you look at something that's built for extreme performance,
Yeah.
the input matches the output.
Right, yeah, it's simple physics, really.
Exactly. I mean, if you have this massive, heavy-duty truck that's designed to haul thousands of pounds, you just expect it to chug fuel.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't look at a freight train and think, oh, that runs on a AAA battery. It's just not how things work.
It's the foundational law of thermodynamics that we're all used to.
Right.
A massive energy output mandates a massive energy input. Like, if you burn the fuel, you have to replace the fuel volume for volume.
Which makes perfect logical sense, right? Until you step into the world of canine biology.
Yeah, that's where the math completely breaks down.
It really does.
Yeah.
Specifically, when you look through the stack of research you sent us for this deep dive, the material from the VitalPet podcast, the Dog Health Academy.
Such a great source.
It's incredible. And it focuses on one of the most famously tireless athletic animals on the entire planet. And suddenly, that straightforward metabolic math is just completely broken.
Oh, totally shattered.
We are looking at a biological landscape that is genuinely counterintuitive.
It defies almost every assumption that a modern pet owner has about diet and exercise.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at your notes from the VitalPet experts, we are going to explore the Siberian Husky's evolutionary engine.
Yes.
We're going to decode the actual biological mechanisms that dictate what should be sitting in their modern food bowl. And we're going to learn how their famous fluffy coats are often hiding a rather serious metabolic secret.
A very well-hidden secret, yeah.
Right. And whether you have a husky pacing your living room right now or you're simply fascinated by the weird and wonderful ways biology adapts to extremes, this deep dive is basically a masterclass in why you cannot judge a metabolic engine by its cover.
You really can't. The visual cues that we usually rely on to gauge health or even hunger, they just completely betray us here.
So let's start with the panic phase, because the notes you shared, they highlight this as the absolute #1 point of confusion for a new husky owner.
It happens all the time.
I bet. You bring home this incredibly athletic dog. It has boundless energy. It's practically bouncing off the walls. And so you pour what you assume is a normal, mathematically sound bowl of food.
Based on the back of the bag, usual.
Exactly. And the dog barely touches it.
Yeah.
Or worse, you go to a friend's house and their dog, maybe like a similar size hound that just snoozes on the rug all day, that dog is inhaling twice as much kibble as your husky.
What's fascinating here is the underlying evolutionary mechanism causing that discrepancy.
Because it just doesn't make sense on the surface.
Right. The immediate reaction is usually a trip to the vet because you just assume the dog must be sick.
Like they must have a parasite or something.
Exactly. But that seemingly empty gas gauge isn't broken. It's just calibrated to an environment that no longer exists for the modern pet.
The Arctic environment.
Yeah. If we trace this breed's genetics back to their origins with the Chukchi people in the Siberian Arctic, we aren't just looking at cold weather survival.
Okay.
We are looking at extreme endurance intersecting with extreme caloric scarcity.
Right, because the Chukchi people, they were nomads operating in an environment with incredibly limited resources. I mean, they weren't sitting on massive stockpiles of surplus meat.
Far from it. The seasonal cycles dictated periods of near starvation.
Wow.
So the dogs that survived and thrived and were bred forward, they weren't simply the ones that could pull a sled.
Because pulling a sled is only half the battle.
Exactly. A dog that requires a mountain of food to pull a sled is a deadly liability in a region where there is literally no food.
That makes total sense.
Selective breeding aggressively favored dogs with a drastically lowered basal metabolic rate.
So it's almost like putting your smartphone on low power mode.
Yes.
Like the device still makes calls and sends texts, but it achieves those primary functions while burning a fraction of the battery by aggressively downregulating everything else in the background.
That is the perfect mechanical analogy. Their bodies learned to stretch a single calorie further than almost any other breed out there.
That is just wild.
When they aren't actively running, their bodies downshift their resting metabolic rate to an absolute whisper.
Wow.
So when an owner compares their husky's food bowl to, say, a golden retriever's bowl, they aren't comparing apples to apples.
Because the golden is built differently.
Right. The golden's metabolism is idling at a much higher baseline RPM.
Which completely dismantles this really pervasive myth you see all over the dog forums.
Oh, the picky eater myth.
Yes. That huskies are just notoriously picky eaters, like they're just holding out for a better brand of wet food or some expensive topper.
It's such a dangerous anthropomorphism to assume they're just being culinary snobs.
Right, like they're waiting for a steak.
Exactly. The biological reality is that their resting caloric needs relative to their body weight are genuinely lower than their active appearance suggests.
So they aren't eating because their cellular engine simply isn't demanding the fuel.
Precisely. It's not a glitch.
It's not a bug in the system, it's literally the system's greatest feature.
That's a great way to put it.
But, if their bodies are uniquely adapted to run on minimal fuel volume, the actual biochemical composition of that fuel must be critical.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to how you actually fuel an engine that operates on that level of extreme efficiency.
Well, if you are running an engine on very little fuel, every single drop has to punch way above its weight class.
Right. And looking at the historical data in your stack of research, the working diet for these sled dogs was overwhelmingly dominated by fat and protein.
Heavy, heavy.
We're talking blubber, high-fat fish, whole prey, just incredibly dense stuff.
And there is a very specific physiological reason for that. Fat is the most calorically dense energy source available.
Okay.
But more importantly, husky muscles are uniquely primed for aerobic fat oxidation.
What does that mean exactly, like compared to humans?
Well, unlike a human sprinter who burns through their muscle glycogen and then suddenly hits a wall, these dogs can shift their metabolism to burn fat directly for ATP production.
Oh, wow. So they bypass that wall entirely.
Exactly. It allows for sustained, low-intensity endurance over vast distances without depleting their glycogen stores.
That is an incredible biological hack.
It really is. And the high protein, of course, provides the amino acids required to constantly repair the micro tears in the muscle fibers that result from hauling all that weight.
Okay, I am going to push back on this just a bit. Because I totally grasp the sled dog history and, the cellular mechanics of hauling a sled across the frozen tundra.
Right, the ancestral context.
Yeah. But the Huskies sitting in a suburban living room right now isn't oxidizing fat to cross the Arctic.
No, they're not.
They are chasing a tennis ball for maybe 15 minutes and then sleeping on an orthopedic dog bed for the rest of the day.
True.
Do they really still need a diet biochemically tuned for extreme endurance?
It's the most common question veterinarians get, actually. And the distinction the VitalPet experts make is crucial here.
Okay, lay it on me.
A companion husky absolutely does not need the same volume of fat and protein as an active sled dog. Like, you aren't trying to replace 5,000 burned calories a day.
Right, because if you did, you'd just create a bowling ball with fur.
Exactly, they would blow up. But the epigenetic blueprint of the dog hasn't rewritten itself just because their zip code changed in the last 50 years.
Oh, that makes sense. The hardware is the same.
Yes. Their gastrointestinal tract, their cellular mitochondria, their enzymatic production, all of it is still optimized for that specific macronutrient profile.
So they still need the good stuff.
They do. Quality protein and balanced dietary fats are still processed far more efficiently by their specific biology than, say, a diet loaded with cheap fillers.
Because they're still wired as athletes.
Exactly. You are still fueling a high-performance athlete's digestive system, even if that athlete is currently retired.
I suppose it's no different than human athletes, right?
Not at all.
Like, you don't feed a retired Olympic swimmer a diet of pure junk food just because they stopped competing. Their body still processes high-quality nutrients better.
That's a perfect comparison.
But, okay, if fat and protein are the undisputed stars of the show here, where do carbohydrates fit into this biological math?
Well, carbohydrates were never a significant structural component of the ancestral Arctic diet.
Because there's no wheat growing on the ice.
Right, exactly. However, the veterinary consensus in your notes is very clear that carbs are not inherently toxic or dangerous in a modern context.
Okay, so we don't need to panic about a potato in the ingredient list.
No, not at all. In a complete commercial diet, highly digestible carbohydrates provide accessible energy and essential dietary fiber.
Which is good for digestion.
Critical for it, actually. It maintains a healthy gut microbiome.
So the goal isn't to put the dog on some extreme, zero-carb, ketogenic wolf diet just to mimic the 1800s.
Not at all. The clinical guidance is simply to avoid diets where carbohydrates are used as the primary cheap calorie source at the expense of high-quality animal proteins and fats.
So it's a balancing act.
It's about nutrient hierarchy. You want the fat and protein taking center stage.
And speaking of nutrient hierarchy, there was this biological mechanism in your notes regarding the Husky's appearance that honestly just blew my mind.
Oh, the coat. Yes.
We marvel at their incredible dense double coats. I mean, they are beautiful dogs. But biologically, that coat is basically a billboard advertising the lipid content of their diet.
It really is. It is a direct, visible reflection of their internal fatty acid profile.
That is so cool.
Maintaining that double coat, so you have the dense insulating undercoat and the longer water-repellent guard hairs on top.
Right.
Maintaining all of that requires an enormous amount of physiological resources.
Yeah, the body has to constantly produce sebum, right? That oily substance that coats the hair follicle.
Exactly. The sebaceous glands rely heavily on dietary lipids. Specifically, a balanced ratio of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids to produce that sebum.
And that's what keeps them weatherproof.
Yes, this is what waterproofs the guard hairs and keeps the skin barrier intact against, freezing wind and snow.
So what happens if they don't get enough of those fats?
Well, if you skimp on quality dietary fats, the dog's body essentially goes into triage mode.
Like it has to make cuts to the budget.
Exactly. It will prioritize internal organ function and cellular repair way over sebum production.
Which means the coat is the very first system to get its budget slashed.
You'll see it pretty quickly. The undercoat gets dry, the guard hairs become brittle, and the skin starts flaking.
So it's not just that they need a bath.
No, a dull coat isn't just a cosmetic or grooming issue. It is a clinical indicator that the dietary fat profile is either insufficient in volume or poor in quality.
So what does this all mean for you, the person actually standing in the pet store aisle trying to apply this biology?
That is the real challenge.
It is. Because if highly bioavailable fat and protein are the objective, how do you navigate that aisle without getting totally manipulated by the branding?
It's tough.
Because every single bag claims to be the ancestral, grain-free, wolf-derived superfood your dog desperately needs.
It is an incredibly predatory marketing landscape, to be honest.
Totally.
But the golden rule distilled from the veterinary notes is to understand that the front of the bag is designed by the marketing department.
Right.
And the back of the bag is regulated by the legal department.
Oh, I love that. Which means you ignore the pictures of the majestic wolves howling at the moon and immediately flip the bag over.
You flip it over and look for the nutritional adequacy statement.
Okay, what is that exactly?
This is the fine print regulated by AAFCO, that's the Association of American Feed Control Officials.
Got it.
It is the only sentence on the bag that legally confirms the food meets established scientific thresholds for specific life stages, like growth or adult maintenance.
So it's the actual proof.
Yes. Once you verify that baseline safety net, you move to the guaranteed analysis to examine the actual percentages of crude protein and crude fat.
And obviously, the required ratios in that guaranteed analysis are going to shift depending on the dog's cellular demands.
Of course.
Which brings us to the life stages. Let's look at puppies first.
Okay.
Because we know a husky grows into this very athletic, structurally robust adult frame. The natural human instinct is to pump a puppy full of ultra-high-calorie food so they grow up big and strong.
Which is the absolute worst thing you can do for a breed wired for extreme metabolic efficiency.
Wait, really? Why?
Well, if you flood an efficient engine with excess calories and massive amounts of calcium, you don't just get a bigger dog, you trigger rapid, uncontrolled bone growth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the joints literally cannot cure fast enough to support the rapidly increasing mass of the skeleton.
Exactly. You end up with developmental orthopedic diseases.
Like what kind of diseases?
Conditions like osteochondrosis, where the cartilage doesn't turn into bone properly.
That sounds incredibly painful.
It is. The puppy diet must be specifically formulated for controlled, steady growth.
Slow and steady.
Right. You are building the skeletal foundation for a dog that will be active for 15 years. You want that concrete to cure slowly and perfectly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So once that foundation is set and they hit adulthood, the frequency of feeding usually settles into a standard twice-a-day rhythm.
Usually, yes.
But this is where the portion size variable becomes critical, because that low-power mode metabolism is now fully active.
Yeah, and a fully mature husky will often maintain an ideal body condition score on a volume of food that would leave a different breed of the exact same weight looking emaciated.
It's just so efficient.
Incredibly efficient. And as they transition into their senior years, that metabolic baseline drops even further.
Even if their brain still thinks they are a puppy and their appetite remains high.
Yeah, they might still act hungry. But the cellular demand drops, which is why routine veterinary blood work and body condition assessments become absolutely paramount.
Because you can't just trust their appetite.
No, you have to proactively adjust the caloric intake before the weight packs on.
This raises an important question, and it is perhaps the most glaring warning light flashing throughout the source text you provided.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We have a dog that is metabolically hardwired to extract maximum energy from minimal food.
Right.
If an owner is blindly scooping the generic, volume-based portions recommended on the back of the kibble bag, aren't they putting this specific breed on a fast track to obesity?
They are at a severe risk. Because their metabolic baseline is so low, the margin of error between an appropriate caloric intake and a caloric surplus is just razor thin.
It's like plugging in your smartphone when the battery is already at 99%.
Oh, that's a good way to picture it.
It takes almost nothing to overcharge the system.
And when a husky's system is overcharged, it does exactly what it evolved to do with surplus energy. It stores it as adipose tissue for the next famine.
A famine that, in a modern suburban home, is never going to come.
Never. Even a seemingly innocent habit, like a few extra high-value training treats or a scoop of peanut butter throughout the week, is enough to tip that delicate metabolic scale.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly a bit devious on the part of their anatomy.
Oh, the fluff illusion.
Yes. The owner might not even realize the dog is in a caloric surplus because of what the notes call the fluff illusion.
It is a brilliant biological disguise.
It really is, because if you have a short-haired dog like a boxer or a greyhound, and they gain 4 or 5 pounds of fat, you see it instantly.
Right, the silhouette of the dog fundamentally changes. The tuck of the stomach disappears.
But a husky, they just look a tiny bit more majestic.
They just look fluffier.
Exactly. That dense double coat completely masks the accumulation of adipose tissue.
Which is why relying on a visual assessment from across the living room is a deeply flawed strategy for this breed.
You can't just eyeball it.
No. The veterinary protocols insist on a tactile, hands-on body condition score.
Meaning you actually have to get your fingers down through the guard hairs and the undercoat all the way to the skin.
You have to physically palpate the rib cage.
Okay.
You should be able to feel the individual ribs with only a very thin layer of tissue over them.
And if you can't,
If you have to push firmly through a squishy pad of fat just to find the ribs, the dog is overweight.
good to know.
You also need to physically trace their waistline from above and feel for the abdominal tuck from the side because the fur will artificially fill in those gaps visually.
It's a completely tactile diagnosis.
It has to be.
And this hands-on verification seems to be the only way to avoid what your sources synthesize as the ultimate overarching feeding mistake for this specific breed.
Yes, and that mistake is feeding the historical reputation rather than the biological reality of the dog standing right in front of you.
It makes total sense when you lay out the mechanics. Owners basically fall into one of two extremes.
Right.
They either overfeed a sedentary couch potato husky because they think, oh, huskies are elite athletes, they need premium fuel to thrive.
Which leads to obesity.
Right. Or they swing wildly in the opposite direction and underfeed a highly active agility training husky because they read a forum post that says huskies have magic metabolisms and survive on air.
You have to feed the reality of the dog's daily caloric burn.
Not the myth.
Exactly. A husky living a sedentary lifestyle requires meaningfully fewer calories than one doing structured, rigorous harness work.
That makes perfect sense.
The diet must track dynamically with their real day-to-day energy expenditure, not a romanticized idea of what the breed did a century ago.
And of course, the clinical reminder here is that a veterinarian should be guiding these adjustments.
Always. They have the training to objectively assess body condition and metabolic health in a way that generic internet calculators simply cannot.
So as we synthesize the data from this stack for you, the core takeaway is pretty clear.
It is.
Managing a Siberian Husky's nutrition is ultimately about respecting a highly specialized, centuries-old metabolic engine.
Right.
It is about ditching the generic measuring cup mentality and actually tailoring their caloric intake to their unique biological efficiency.
Spot on.
It's about prioritizing highly bioavailable fats and proteins to fuel their cellular function and maintain the structural integrity of that iconic double coat.
Yes, protect the coat.
And most importantly, it's about using your hands, not just your eyes, to regularly verify their health beneath the fluff illusion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, there is something quite profound hidden in this canine paradox.
I like where this is going.
The veterinary notes emphasize that the husky's extreme metabolic efficiency means they possess an incredibly narrow margin for weight gain when exposed to a modern environment of excess food.
Because they're just too good at storing it.
Right. Their bodies are biologically programmed to anticipate scarcity, so they obsessively store abundance.
Which honestly sounds incredibly familiar.
It should, because it perfectly mirrors the thrifty gene hypothesis in human evolutionary biology.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, humans evolved the exact same metabolic efficiency to survive millennia of food scarcity, harsh winters, and famine.
So we're basically the huskies of the primate world.
In a way, yeah. We were structurally designed to store energy effectively, and now we suddenly find ourselves dropped into a modern, industrialized food environment characterized by highly palatable, constantly available, hyperabundant calories.
And just like the suburban husky getting extra scoops of kibble and peanut butter treats, we experience that exact same hidden weight gain.
Exactly. The external environment drastically changed in a blink of evolutionary time, but the internal metabolic engine is still operating on low power mode, preparing for a winter that never arrives.
That is just a phenomenal thought to leave on.
The great parallel.
The exact same ancient cellular survival mechanism that kept them alive on the frozen tundra is the very thing making them, us, so vulnerable to an environment of abundance.
Precisely. Understanding the husky's metabolic paradox isn't just a fascinating lesson in canine biology and nutrition. It serves as a striking, real-world mirror reflecting our own biological mismatch with the modern world.
We want to thank you so much for sharing this stack of research with us and for joining this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
We hope this breakdown gave you a much deeper mechanical appreciation for the incredible biology of these dogs. Keep asking those profound questions, keep analyzing the science behind the bowl, and remember, when you are dealing with an engine this highly calibrated, you always have to look beneath the fluff.